I would also say on the issue of our system will get better, I would say that sadly the trend is that the system is not getting better. It's actually getting worse. And there are reasons why that system has got worse over time. And I understand and I believe there are unique features of the Islamic legal system which do not apply in the same way. So, for example, and I don't want to get too much into details, so I have a few introductions, but for example, when it comes to capital punishment, the biggest reason people oppose capital punishment, and I'm not saying this is the only reason, but the reason that comes at the top of the surveys is miscarriage of justice. So if we can prove that Islam puts in a system that is strong enough to prevent miscarriage of justice, that argument no longer stands as being a significant reason to abolish capital punishment.
And what you mean by miscarriage of justice? Someone who's falsely accused and then falsely...
And ends up losing their life and
for something that they didn't
do. And that is usually the number one, in just surveys general, just look at surveys people have said who oppose capital punishment, usually the reason why is not an ideological reason that we shouldn't be taking people's lives, but typically it is, what if there's a miscarriage of justice? So that is something that I believe Islam provides a very strong answer to, which means that the reasoning is not the same. But if you look at the general trend is across the world is generally the lightening of punishments, the lessening of punishments, and sadly an increase in rates of crime. I mean, my grandmother tells me or told me about times when people used to leave the door open in the UK. You used to leave your front door open, and now people have bolt the door 3 times, and the alarms and CCTV cameras and what have you. It hasn't improved. It's actually gotten worse, despite the fact that their legal system and criminal justice system is supposedly improving. So my argument would be your system is improving and your situation is getting worse. Something isn't quite right in that regard. So I just wanted to mention a few points. I think Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's ruling, we have to understand that there is no ruling, we're told in Islam, there is no ruling better than the ruling of Allah. Allah Azza wa Jalla said, أَفَحُكْمَ الْجَاهِلِيَّةِ يَبْغُونَ. Is it the ruling of the pre-Islamic times that they want? Is it the law of pre-Islamic times that they want? وَمَنْ أَحْسَنُ مِنَ اللَّهِ حُكْمًا لِقَوْمٍ يُوقِنُونَ. Who is better than Allah in ruling, in law, than for a people who have certainty? The Islamic system is a holistic system. I think when you just focus on only the aspect of punishments, you can skew the picture. And I do think it's a valid topic. I'm pleased that you've decided to raise this topic on the hot seat, because it is a valid topic. But also to make that Islam is unfair on the religion of Islam. Islam needs to be seen as a whole, not as one particular focusing on one particular aspect, because that does give you a misunderstanding of the religion of Islam. It doesn't give you the balance of all the things that Islam brings. Islam is a religion for all people, all places, and all times. It is a religion that works everywhere in the world. And a lot of times when people criticize things, they do tend to look with very, very narrow tunnel vision at what they believe to be their specific situation.
Right.
And I think it's important that people understand that Islamic law is for everyone, everywhere.
Including their
specific situation. And I think that is something that people often neglect, to be honest. They often neglect, or they often, for example, if you live in a society that is relatively, shall we say, safe, or relatively and a relatively advanced society in terms of what people consider to be things like criminal justice and things like that. People tend to look at that, and then they tend to sort of make criticisms, which, to be honest, if they were to go, a few hundred miles in any one direction, they would be able to clearly see the wisdom behind some of the things that are said.
But the point I was trying to make by saying including their society is that you might have people who like you said, in their society, it might not match. It might not.
No, I do believe it matches. I don't
Okay.
believe it's the case that it doesn't match. I believe it's an issue of hikmah, because we believe there is no one better than Allah in hukm. There is no one
Agreed,
better than
agreed.
Allah in His law.
Yeah.
And that law is wise in that country. But sometimes to see the wisdom of that, for example,